All right, so the most impressive trailer that was showcased at the Game Awards, in my humble opinion, is Hellblade 2. I think this was the best trailer overall, specifically when it comes to showcasing gameplay. This was number one. And the primary reason is because the story actually looks like it's going to be pretty damn good. And I want to use this video as an opportunity to explain why storytelling in video games is important and has become important compared to, the state of the industry from 15, 20 years ago. Storytelling in video games, to me, has always been important, equally as important as gameplay. You can play a great game that has amazing gameplay's on point, but then the storytelling is shit. And if the storytelling is shit, and if you don't care about the characters, then there's not really any point. The gameplay at that point would have to be so good that you can actually ignore how bad the storytelling actually is. There's very few franchises that can get away with this. One of the most prolific franchises where the gameplay is fantastic and it's damn near flawless, but the storytelling for the majority of the games in said franchise is just straight up dog shit, is Devil May Cry. Devil May Cry is within my top 10 favorite franchises of all time, yet the storytelling is just terrible in the majority of the games. In fact, the game that actually has the best storytelling in the entire series was derided and basically just ignored, and that's the Devil May Cry reboot, DMC. People hated the fuck out of that game, and the reason was because they didn't like the main character. They didn't like how Dante was portrayed in the reboot compared to the Japanese version, when the Japanese version isn't well written either. But I'll save that for potentially another video in the future. Point is, very few games are on the same level of gameplay as a series like Devil May Cry. So it becomes harder when the game has a bad story and has characters that you don't give a shit about. And then you have other games, I'm going to use another example, where you have a universally praised game like The Last of Us. The first The Last of Us game is one of the best video games ever made, and the reason people love it so much, because there's a lot of people that didn't really get it, or at least there's a minority audience that didn't understand, like, why is this game popular? The gameplay's nothing special. I've seen my fair share of detractors from that game who just didn't care for The Last of Us and didn't understand why it was such a major success. There were a lot of great things about The Last of Us, but the primary thing that people love about the game and why it's great is because of the story. The characters were well written, the story was kept very simple, and most importantly, you actually gave a shit about the two characters in that game. You actually cared because the game was well written. So, storytelling in video games should not be underestimated. And this is one of the reasons why Hellblade, the original, made it in my top 10 list from last generation. I think I put it at like number 10 or whatever. And that's because the story was good, The gameplay, it was okay. I mean, could it have been better? Sure. Was it underwhelming in certain areas? Sure. But ultimately, the story was interesting, the world was interesting, and this sequel looks like it's going to move in the same direction. But it's just going to expand on things that the first game didn't really explore. And it's great to see that there's going to be other characters in this game besides Senua. So it's not going to be as claustrophobic a game as the first one. But because there's going to be other characters here, I'm curious as to what direction they're actually going to go with this. What is this story really about? I'm very curious. Also, it was very impressive with the giant that they had in this trailer. That is a technical showpiece right there that I can see they took a lot of time to develop. I want to see more things like that. I want to see larger enemies. I want to see improvements and additions added on to the combat system. I want to see puzzles that have more of a hands-on experience compared to the first game. there's a lot here that I'm actually looking forward to that I'm sure is in the game somewhere, but they just haven't revealed it yet. Either way, I think Microsoft has another winner on their hands with Hellblade 2. The original was definitely a cult hit for a reason. And this one looks like it's going to continue that success story. Very much looking forward to the release of Hellblade 2, whenever it is that they plan to actually launch this thing. But for the time being, it looks very impressive. And I can't wait to see more.
He's seen you. She's...